Never seen these things. Is this like a specialized thing? Is that like something you own, or is that something that they rent?
No. It's just a multi-track recorder.
But the last time I seen recorders, they had cassettes in them.
Yeah, well, it's got two.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Hack the Planet podcast. We deviate from our usual format of hacker ranting for a long format interview with Bill Pollock, the much beloved publisher of No Starch Press, the absolute best technical book company of all time. We love Bill because of his obsession with quality and the enthusiasm and passion he has for educating and growing our community. You might also know him from his whiskey tasting parties at DEF CON. Bill gave us an hour during Teardown at 36C3, the Chaos Computer Club's 36th Annual Congress. We talk about how to drink the ultimate bourbon, coffee roasting, and his new foundation to support up-and-coming hackers with microgrants. A warning, since this was recorded during Teardown at Congress, there is some occasional interruptions and noise from work and crazy electrical scooters bumping techno in the background. I call this an interview, but for those of you familiar with Bill, this is 100% pure Bill. It's a little difficult to get a word in edgewise, but if you've ever wished on some level you could take Bill home from DEF CON, here's an hour of audio to console yourself with. Without further ado, Bill Pollock.
So your name is?
Oh, Bill Pollock, and I run No Starch Press, and also No Starch Press Foundation, which you may not know about. I started a nonprofit too in the end of 2016.
Okay, so No Starch Press, most of our listeners might actually know because they're famous for printing geeky books and books targeted at hacker audiences.
Correct. Yeah, geeks and hackers, programmers, like serious, and also young people. We do a bunch of programming books for young kids, and I do Lego books too. I publish Lego books because geeks like Lego, and I publish books on Lego Mindstorms, robotics. I have Lego robotics books that have sold 75,000 copies. They're always the best-selling ones on the market. I've got books on I'm doing high-tech Lego projects, beautiful, complex. So a lot of what drives me with the Lego books is you have people who are passionate about their hobby, and I want to give them something that says, look, this is a legitimate hobby. It's not a toy. So I give them a beautiful coffee table book. And I built that whole book category. If you see Lego books, I started in 2003. Cool. No one was doing Lego books. I published the unofficial Lego Builder's Guide, which gave you Lego building techniques for adults. But not necessarily, for anyone who took their hobby seriously. And I've been doing, and other tech publishers were doing books on Lego Mindstorms, but the wider world is Lego. Now I've lost a lot of that market to a larger company, Dorling Kindersley. They're $1 billion publisher. I'm not. And they basically stamped all over me. And I know for a fact that they actually follow what I do, and then they just knock me off. So the other thing that they knocked off was Scratch. We do books on Scratch programming, which is a programming language for kids. And they do Scratch books. And they told me flat out at a Frankfurt Book Fair, oh yeah, we just kind of follow. We're going to be doing books on Scratch too. They just came by the booth, and then then they do a whole line. But but I make books for geeks of any age, and I don't typically. I mean, the key thing there is maybe it's a 20-year-old might be in the same place as a 70-year-old as far as level of sophistication, but a 10-year-old typically is not, or an 8-year-old. So I have a book, Python for Kids. I rewrote a lot of that book with my son was the tech guru when he was 15, and that has been the best introduction to Python in the world. Before Python Crash Course and Automate the Boring Stuff with Python, which some of your readers may know. Python Crash Course is now the second best-selling tech book in the world after a book on coding interviews. We're selling 5,000 copies a month in print in the US, and it sold 300,000 or 350,000 copies in China last year in print. It looks just like our book, just the Chinese. And Python for Kids is a basic, simple introduction to programming, and I'm not a programmer, and I'm not shy about saying that. I don't write any code. I mean, I'll fix stuff and I can read code, but I don't actually believe that everyone needs to write code. But it would be nice to actually be able to read code, just like we can sometimes read music but not play music. I took a music literacy course in college where you learn to follow the music, and if you're listening to a classical piece, you can see how the notes get faster, they're closer together, it's going up, it's rising and falling. I think to me that coding literacy is important for most people. The ability to code, in my opinion, is not important to most people. for most people. That doesn't mean they won't try to do it. And it's fine, let them do it. I mean, I've written code and run things, but that's enough. It's like, I don't, but I've edited many books on programming and many technical books. The last book that I edited was Serious Cryptography, which has become the best-selling cryptography book in the world. Ron Rivest is using it at MIT. Nadim is using it to teach a class. All the cryptographers will tell you, it's J.P. Emerson is the author. It's the best cryptography book on the market. And I built that with JP as a gift for the community, because I think it's really important that the hacking community really understand crypto, and I mean cryptography, not cryptocurrency. Yeah. And I refuse to give that up. That people understand the technologies that they use. When the smarter we all are, the better off we all are, because we won't be doing things wrong. So.
Oh, sorry.
No. So anyway, so that was the last book that I actually edited, and now what I primarily do is, because I've had the company since '94, is direct and train my editors, and also work to train my authors so that they understand how we make books, how we've made books, and how I think tech books ought to be made going forward.
So I have a question. So I think certainly all of my listeners will know what you do every DEF CON. Which is
yell at people.
Yeah. Well,
I usually do that to one or two.
You move an insanely large number of books to DEF CON.
Pallets of books.
Yeah, pallets of books.
Yeah,
and then you're at the vendor area, slinging books the whole time. And then there's usually a party involving bourbon.
Or three.
Yep.
That run till 3 a.m, which
and,
I hate.
Anyway. and you're talking to, literally everyone I know at the event, possibly everyone at the event. I'm not sure.
Probably couple of thousand people who think that I remember every conversation that we had 3 days ago.
And
it's like,
so how many DEF CONs have you done?
I think I started DEF CON 9.
So
DEF CON 7 or 9 was my first. It was Alexis Park.
So 20 some odd DEF CONs, right? But I've also seen you at several of these. I've seen you at several. Let's just edit this out.
Yeah, there's enough background noise.
Okay. So I've seen you at several CCC events, right? And
half dozen, I think.
Yeah, half dozen.
2 camps and probably 4 congresses.
But
Berlin, Hamburg, and now Leipzig.
You're not here necessarily selling books.
I don't have any books.
You don't have any books.
Although some people wish I did, but I don't, because books are heavy.
Because this is it's a different kind of environment.
This is also about my engaging with the community. Selling books is also a certain level of engagement, but if I come to a conference as a vendor, it's a different relationship.
So my question is, what do you get up to at the how was your Congress?
Congress to me, when I've been able to go, and it's been challenging because I have a 22-year-old who's a computer scientist, mathematician, but he doesn't want to be mini me, right? So he won't go to DEF CON because people are like, hey Bill, and he's like, oh, that's your son. So it's like, no one wants to be just identified as the son. He wants to be his own man, which he should be. So what's really great about Congress, and I actually felt this really firmly at camp, is like, you can run into anyone and someone is doing something interesting here. I don't know about Congress at this size, but when I went to camp, for example, in 2011, you'd meet people at the showers, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm actually a rocket scientist. I work at Darmstadt on rockets, and there are people here doing rocket work, and they're actual scientists. They're not just like, oh yeah, hacking's cool. When I hang out, like at DEF CON, for example, I will always have. I try to stay away from the tables now because the older I get, the less patience I have. So if someone comes up and it's like, oh yeah, man, so really want to hack my girlfriend's Facebook account, it's like, I don't have books on that because I don't believe in making people more annoying. I believe in making them smarter. So I'm not going to help you to break stuff. I take that back. I will help you to break stuff, but not because you want to steal from someone or not because you want to hurt them. Because when you break things, you learn to fix them. And that's really important too. And that's not. And I believe that information should be free. Someone said to me yesterday, we were hanging out. I was like, "Yeah, I got to tell you, what do you think about like I get your books from this pirate site?" I said, "I don't care. I don't care because I think of it as probably shouldn't say this, but I think of it as like a lending library. How does the library work? You go to the library, you borrow the book, you can read the whole thing, and you can bring it back. Bookstore, you can sit there and read it for 2 hours. So, you want to take the stuff off a pirate site." Do it, and if you use it, and I tell this to people to their face, you should buy it if it's worth buying. If it's not worth reading, then don't buy it. But how can you evaluate a book, right? You can say, I like this phone, look, it's fast, whatever, but how do you evaluate a book that's 500 pages long?
can only take a look at the cover.
Well, you flip through it, but like it's like, you know, when we buy houses, there's a problem with buying a house. It's like a house in San Francisco which sells for $1.5 million. You get to look at it for 10 minutes, and then you make an offer to the broker, and it's like, I just bought a house for $1.5 million, and then to let you back for another 20 minutes. Like, that's ridiculous, right? But like, a book is not the same thing, but it's actually a lot harder sometimes to evaluate a book what I say to people, if you want to evaluate a book, look at a section that you know and see like, oh yeah, does that make sense? Are you nodding your head like, yeah, they know what they're talking about? And then read a section that you don't know. So for example, if it's a modern C++ book, how closely is it tied to C? The thing is that things change, Ben.
Yeah.
No, but you know, like things do change. So it's kind of like, oh, I didn't know that. And if it's like, oh, I didn't know that, and oh, this person's really interesting and the writing is good, it's probably worth buying. But I remember when I used to look at networking books in the 90s, you'd have these big fat books, and basically you'd need like 5 pages in there. And if that's all I want, I'm not paying this crazy price for 5 pages of information. My problem is solved. Now my biggest competition is Google. And it's not that I'm ever going to compete with Google, but the biggest competition for readers' minds is like a Google search. And if I can solve a Linux problem, I run generally Linux unless I have to, and we all are running Android. Well, not all of us, but right. But like, you know, if I can solve a problem with a Google search in 10 seconds, there's no need for a book. But when we're trying to teach people core topics like, for example, a programming language, I don't want to read a million tutorials. I want to sit down and actually engage with the book. And we were talking earlier about the form of a book and the papers and binding and stuff. I care a lot about stuff like that because it's a very personal relationship. And it's hard to explain, but with books, like I'll edit a book sometimes for a year, and going through chapter after chapter. Serious Cryptography was like this. I didn't realize it was only like 300 pages long, but some of those pages took me an hour to edit, literally an hour. So, by the way, when someone comes up to me, it's like, your books are too expensive, my response is like, fuck you. That took me 300 hours to edit, and it's too cheap. But I'm not going to raise the price. But it's like, but don't tell me it's too expensive, because I didn't just take the book and print it. I actually spent 300 hours editing that book personally, and then like, I actually care about my work, and I try to price it fairly. But again, I don't mind I have friends. Bram Cohen's an old friend of mine. He wrote BitTorrent. When I was at one of the congresses, Peter Sunday was checked me in and handed me a bunch of Pirate Bay stickers, and I said like, "Oh, are you involved with Pirate Bay?" It's like, "Oh, wait," like, "Oops," but that doesn't scare me, because if you make a good product, people will ultimately buy it and they'll support you, and that support is actually one thing that's allowed me to build this nonprofit foundation. I have a 501c3. The No Starch Press Foundation, and we just gave out our first round of grants, and I put in over $800,000 of my money, which is thanks to the hacking community. And I just put another $300,000, and I could have bought a McLaren, or 2 or 3, but I like old Volvos. Yeah. Although I don't actually have an old Volvo now. I have a modified VW Jetta Sportwagen TDI that was hacked. They hacked it, then they had to sell them back, and then you can actually modify them with Malone Tune and make a super fast vehicle. Anyway, whatever. But I like old cars. I do have a 66 Volvo, 1966 Volvo that caught fire and burned. It almost blew up. I had it in the shop
for
for
240.
No, it's a 544.
Wow.
It was designed in 1948.
Have you ever been driving on a German highway?
Yeah. I rented a BMW, and my foot was on the floor.
I mean, there's no other place on the world where you can drive with unlimited speed, right?
Oh, yeah. I love cars. I don't think I'm a very good driver, but I love vehicles. I've always loved cars. But I get obsessed about things. So I can tell you all stuff about Volvos. I've had multiple Volvos. I had P1800, 544, 240 turbo wagons, 5-speed. I don't have them anymore. I'd like to get a 122. That would be good. But I get obsessed about things like I should finish the foundation conversation.
Yeah,
so
you got to wrap up the plug.
It's really important to me. It's like the thing. So in 2015, we started doing humble bundles, and many people know our humble bundle deals. We were one of the first publishers to do it, because I was also the first publisher in the world to come out against DMCA. I was the first publisher to release a press release saying we don't support this. It's a wrong-headed approach to a problem. I've sat in meetings with other publishers at Penguin Random House, my distributor, with other publishers from around the country, and said they're talking about privacy, and I said, look, you say like you sold 15,000 copies, you're so excited to 3 million potential buyers, and you're concerned about privacy. We have no market penetration as book publishers. My Python book will sell probably 500,000 copies to what, 12 million Python programmers? That's better market penetration, but that's still nothing, relatively speaking. That's a very successful book. But most of my books will sell, let's say, between 10 and 30,000 copies to millions of potential buyers. So what am I worried about with piracy? So back to the foundation stuff. So Humble Bundle, the first ones brought in nearly $1 million each, and we get hundreds of thousands of dollars as a result. So I took a large chunk of that and I put it into the foundation to give back to the community that built my company. And that also, frankly, probably saved my life. Because this is when I found this community in 2000, as a result of actually working on Steal This Computer book, which you may know from years ago. I rewrote the whole first edition, built the CD, whatever. Never mind. I've done it before, and we'll do it again. But that brought me into the whole community where I learned about how the community works. And it's still, even though it's older, it's still a bit of an introduction for people, right? But it's I found this community, and it's this is a community where if I talk about coffee for an hour, some people will leave and say, "Oh my God," and others they'll follow and listen because they want to learn. This is a community that likes to learn. And it's not just the people at Congress; it's people in the hacking community. We like to learn about stuff. We don't like black boxes. We like to be smarter. And what I'm doing, what I can to make those resources available to whether it's a 10-year-old kid or an 8-year-old who wants to learn, who doesn't have the community, who doesn't know how to connect, and that's what I want the foundation to do. So with my foundation, the intent is to we're trying to wrap up a GitHub-based micro-granting platform, which is really, really interesting, because basically you can do this all with GitHub. And basically what will happen is you will submit a simple grant request, which will get voted up like Reddit or Hacker News by the community. So you'll join for $5. It doesn't exist yet, but I've seen the prototype and it works. And it'll get voted up. And once it hits a certain threshold, it'll get farmed off to a technical advisory board. And then the idea is that if two people because maybe it's a bunch of cryptographers, right? You sit on your phone, you're like, what's new? Oh, this came up. So it'll get assigned to you randomly. And if two people on the board voted up, it will go to the executive board and be funded. And the idea is to fund projects. Currently, it's only domestic for some legal reason that we can overcome, but we have to know what to do because it's a 501c3, and we don't want to mess with the IRS because the important thing is that the foundation survive, especially in the early years. And if it's no, you screwed up, we shut you down, that doesn't help anyone. So, but anyway, grants will range from $300 to $1,500. So micro grants, and if you look around Congress, as I have been doing, nearly everyone here could probably benefit from something like this. I'm trying to do, everyone's sitting at their laptop working on some cool thing. And it's yeah, I would get that, but let's say you wanted to hack this thing, and let's say it costs $400, and you don't really want to destroy your own. So I really want to mess around with this. I heard you can do some cool stuff there. And I'll ask the No Starch Press Foundation if if 500,000 people own these and it's totally cool, and you say I want to do this thing, understand what it's about, help people to get more out of the product, the foundation will probably support that. But we'll give you $400. We won't give you $2,000. It's you want this thing? We'll bet. I had proposals come in and they're on the site now. They want 3D printers. And the one issue that I had is that one request was for a MakerBot replicator, and the problem there is that's $1,800. So you can get these resin-based 3D printers, which I saw for the first time at Fail Overflow. Bunny was playing with it, and it's these are. Have you seen these? These are totally cool. Although apparently they're toxic, but whatever. Just use it with caution. But for $200 to $300, I had $250 on Amazon in the U.S. You can get this resin-based printer that makes really cool stuff. So teach with that. You don't need $1,500. Be creative, or buy something from Monoprice. But just because you've heard about the MakerBot replicator, then that's use your head, and we'll pay for something that supports what you're trying to do. And I think that's a lesson that people, a kid, will learn too. Mm-hmm. It's okay, and then learn that from people with experience. You don't need to buy the $1,800 laptop when the $300 ThinkPad will do, and put Linux on it. Yeah. And you have the experience of and you don't need Windows. You can put Linux on any machine that you can buy. Any machine your parent gives you, you can put Linux on, and it'll run. Right? So and you learn, and you'll break it, and we'll reinstall it in 20 minutes. Just have a separate home partition and. So anyway, so
Did you guys have some ground you wanted to cover specifically?
Oh yeah.
Any questions?
Any questions? Right now, not. How about you?
No, really not.
All right.
All the things I do are also quite cheap, so
Yeah.
I brought like 10,000 of these NSA device stickers to this congress, and this was like about 250 euro or something, so
Right.
tremendously cheap.
I mean, but the foundation probably would not. Well, there's a board, there's a programming committee.
Would you fund a sticker project?
If the sticker project had community benefit, that was not like a real. I mean, the whole thing is like you have to have some kind of arbiter that's like this actually has real community benefit, not like trolling benefit or whatever. Like that's actually, I mean, it should be something real. But what I might personally support that. But the foundation probably wouldn't support that because if the IRS comes to check it out, it's like you funded this sticker project. Why? Like how is that consistent with your goals?
Yeah.
But what I am expecting the foundation to do is, as the membership grows and as the technical advisory boards grow, you end up with a mentor area. So let's say you're a kid and you want to do something really interesting, and people like. Let's say you're like, cryptography is really interesting, I really want to work on this thing, and you submit it. So let's say, I don't know, Matt Blaze is on the board or Dan Bernstein or whatever, and they look at it and say, this is really cool. They can actually grab that issue because it's GitHub and talk to you. And suddenly it's like some expert cryptographers actually talking to you and respecting you as a 10 or 12-year-old. My son, when he was 12, would do this math research, and he posted it to Wikipedia, and it kept getting reverted because he wasn't like acknowledged or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was, so they kept reverting it. And then what was really funny is that like a year later, it's like, oh, someone else did the same thing and posted it, and it was correct as I knew it was. But like, what you want to do is reach out to kids like that, grab them, and say like, we're here to support you. The thing, getting back to the DEF CON thing, one experience is like, this is a very supportive community, I find, and like people will help you, people want to teach you. And people with DEF CON will teach, but it's not the same sort of emphasis as I think you find at CCC. You go around Congress and it's like these people are just giving talks on stuff, and it's not that you wouldn't necessarily see that at a certain level at DEF CON, but a lot of the U.S. hacker cons I think are sort of held down by a focus on. They're more commercial. Like a friend of mine's daughter commented that she didn't see much company branding at all except the No Starch sticker, but she has worked my booth, so she recognized that was. Anyway, but like
I've often thought it would be better if we had a sort of non-corporate funded conference of some kind in the United States, sort of similar to this. But I'm not sure how you would do that at all in the United States.
I thought for a while that you could like rent a youth hostel, like there's this Lighthouse Youth Hostel, Point Arena Lighthouse Hostel, whatever, and like have people hang out there. But it's I don't have the bandwidth to do that. But I think what you do is like, I have thought actually about buying property too, where you could actually have an event, because you could buy property in Boonville, Northern California, which is like in the middle of nowhere. You could buy like 30, 50 acres, and you could have like a whole. I could do it. It's just like Bill. I mean, that or McLaren. You could buy the McLaren, you could buy the property.
I've had thoughts along the same lines, actually.
Couldn't this be something that the foundation actually pays for? Let's make a non-sponsored hacker conference in the US.
If someone would organize it, not me, yes, I think that would be something to present to the foundation and say, would you sponsor this? But the main thing is the foundation. This is not the Trump Foundation. There's no picture of Bill portrait hanging over there that was funded by the foundation. There's a programming committee. It's currently Heidi Potter, Lost, and Liam Randall, and Mudge is on the board, and they're the ones voting on these things. So if the board supports it, we'll support it. So yeah, the foundation could potentially support that. And what I'm hoping to do is actually get people to give the foundation. What I really want secretly is all the people who made their millions in cryptocurrencies should just give the foundation their money, and they'll get their tax benefit, and then they can get involved and tell us where the money should go. So it is really a foundation built by hackers, and initially my money, for hackers. So yeah, the foundation could totally support something like that, or it would certainly seem like consistent with the foundation's charter.
If someone is interested in applying for a grant, what would they do?
NoStarchFoundation.org, and there's an application process. We closed the current grant cycle. There'll be another grant cycle, And unfortunately, I'm the current administrator, which means I'm also the one letting people know they got their grants, and I have to go back and queue them up and send them all their paperwork and all this. But that will hopefully change, and I'll hire an admin. But yeah, I mean, but I really want the foundation to be driven by the community, and I'm totally transparent about it. I posted all the grants that were received to the site. I have the financials, I think, are posted there. All the documents. It's like really transparent. What I really want the GitHub thing to do too is I want a ticker on the site so you can see money coming in and money going out. And that's why I love the whole Reddit idea, so you can actually see the grant requests coming in.
It's really transparent.
Yeah. I believe in total transparency. I'm, maybe this is the Asperger's in me. Like I'm very direct. If someone says, "Is my ass fat?" Yes, is your ass is fat? Oh my God, you said my ass is fat. I'm like, don't marry me. I don't recommend it to anyone. And my wife would probably concur, but I'm hard to offend, but I'm just very direct, and that's how my books work too. So I tell authors what I think they need to do to make it great, and that's my goal. I want everything to. I like to be around great things. I care deeply about getting into stuff because I'm looking, as my son says, it's like min, max, optimize. I don't deny it. Like when I was into tea, I know all the Chinese teas. Bourbon, I have 600 to 800 bottles of bourbon. And if you've seen me, I'll pick them out. I can pick them out. I can pick the bottles out. I'm a little out of practice now. You pick them out from the back. I can pick them out by smell. Not anymore.
So what's the ultimate bourbon?
The Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, I think, is the ultimate. I have 2 years of that. I think George T. Stagg is amazing at about 141 proof, and it really tastes great at 141 proof. And also, actually, William LaRue Weller, and I remember the smells, I just can't, is amazingly good. And the street value on those is probably $1,500. But I bought them for $80. I wouldn't pay more than 80, maybe 100. Those are really amazing. Those are like, oh my God, this is amazing bourbons. But what drink is worth $1,500 a bottle? Nothing. I don't care. Like these old cognacs, Louis XIV, whatever. You ever have old cognac? It just tastes really smooth. Like it's really boring. It's not like, and people are like, oh, it's so smooth. It's like, what's smooth? Jim Beam is smooth too. Like it's
Southern Comfort.
It's smooth too. Fireball. Ask Gillis. No, but these prices are ridiculous. But the whole thing, it's like my books are reasonably priced too, because I feel like people should be able to afford it, and and if they want it used or whatever. Also, when people buy from us direct, you get the print book and all the ebooks, all DRM free in your account.
Awesome. You
get the print book. We'll often give you a discount, and we'll give you PDF, EPUB, and Mobi files all free.
I actually have German friends that buy books from No Starch and have them shipped to my house, and then never collect them because they just wanted the PDF. I ended up with 3 copies of Serious Cryptography, one of which I actually bought.
And how many did you read?
1.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
But I look at these markets as non-overlapping circles and diagrams, whatever. The piracy market is over here. Then people will just always pirate. They're never going to buy. But people will buy everything. We have people who have shelves of No Starch books. I'm flattered to see that. I want to see more of it. And then there are people using it in schools. But these are all these different markets, and it's not like. And publishers look at these markets and it's like, oh my God, piracy, our business is going to close. I haven't had a down year in 25 years. This year we're up over 25% again. And I've never used DRM. I'll never use DRM. I don't believe in it. You should have the same rights in an electronic book as you do in a print book. What's the difference? It's like you buy why should Amazon be able to take it off your Kindle? That's ridiculous. But you can sideload mine, and they're yours. Although, unfortunately, it's kind of a pain once they go over a certain size. It just doesn't really work. But
PDF rendering in Kindle is a little rough.
Well, Mobi. We have Mobi files.
Oh, yeah, you do Mobi.
Yeah, we have Mobi files. Yeah, so I mean, and the thing is, again, with this community, I trust to this community to support us, and the community does. And that's why I built the foundation to give back. I give back with the work that I do, with the books that I make, but I also give back with actual cash. And it's like, and that cash will go to support a lot of people doing interesting work, because a lot of these people they're young people who just, they do have something interesting they want to do. They want to play with a game console, and their parent won't let them buy a game. We're doing a Game Boy modding book, for example, right? So people are like, Mom, it's only $50 at the thrift shop. It's like, sorry. It's like, so the kid can write to us and say, I want to mod Game Boys. And Lauren and the foundation might approve it and give them $50. As long as I don't have to be the one writing like 100, checks or 1,000 checks, it's fine. That's why I want GitHub, and I want to figure out how to automate the whole grant giving process. And that's going to be great for foundations, because the issue I see, and as you can tell, I talk too much. So no board will ever put me on. No one will ever add me to the board, because I take over the whole board. I used to do that in college too. I studied political science not because I liked political science. I actually hated it, and I used to say that in class all the time, that it was bullshit. It's just public-private, the same thing. I intended to be a scientist, and it's not like I was confused. Political science is not science. Never mind why I took it, but I used to talk in class the entire period. Whoops. Palette check. I would just read the introduction and beginnings of chapters, and I would talk the entire time. I'd do it in 10 minutes. It was all nonsense, the same thing. You can't do that with a science book, but you could definitely do it with political science books. But anyway, but what I see with boards, the problem I see with foundations and people who run them have confirmed, it's like the board is volunteer. You don't go to the board and say, you need to review 1,000 projects. They're like, what? No way. No, they go and like, well, we have to give out, each one gets $1 million. Who do we give $10 million to? The problem is that money will the bigger amount disappear. Like when you look at what the Red Cross did in Haiti, for example, like $1 billion went there or something. Who knows where did it go? Who knows? Like in my foundation, the grantees will actually report back, and the community will expect them to report back, because we want to know what they did. That's cool.
Yep.
How did it work? That's exciting. It will give you more money. So I think the micro granting process, where you actually have this expectation of actually reporting back, is going to be very interesting. And because it's also going to teach people too, because you'll see if you look at the site, like the kind of grants that we're giving, it's like these are inventive things. People are actually doing cool stuff, and it'll give people ideas for things that they might be able to do. So I hope that'll become a very useful center of not only information to be shared, but mentorship, and it'll drive a lot of innovation and research.
Sounds very cool.
Yeah, well, it's starting to work now, so it's great.
Yeah, sounds like a proven way to improve the community.
It's a very tangible way to like drive things, and we'll see that we have the first round. 22 grants are going out. People seem very happy to get them, and I want it to be a real thing. And I really want it to be driven by the community, not by me. So when people say, "Hey, can I get this?" my answer is, the board will decide. It's not me, and I will not decide. The only thing that I'll do is say, like, is it consistent with the foundation's goals? Did they complete did they answer all the questions? Do we have concerns? But like the programming committee votes, and I go with that decision. I didn't even read some of these, because it's like they were clear, 3 out of 4, so fine. Then that's how you work. But it's hard to do that, right? Because people like power. But I gave the money away to actually give it away. Like it's meant to be used by the community. But that's why I'll need the community's help, not only in joining, requesting grants and giving money to the foundation so we can give it away. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch it develop. I'm really excited about that as like the next chapter, and really like something that should outlive me.
One more time, how do you apply for a grant?
NoStarchFoundation.org, and you just click the apply when we're actually taking applications, which is not right now.
Okay.
I don't know what happens if you try now. It might just go into the dump or something.
Well, who knows how long it'll take me to edit this together.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Yes.
Did you notice any differences in the hacker cultures in the US and here?
Yeah, I've noticed that over the years. I mean, I'm trying to so one reason, for example, that I run my bourbon tastings the way I do is like I'm trying to bring more of the kind of adult, atmosphere to DEF CON. Because DEF CON's a party, and it's fine. But I think there's a lot that people can learn from each other. So when I do my bourbon tastings at DEF CON, I have very strict rules, and I piss some people off every year. Because it's like no one gets drunk. I tell them flat out, if you get drunk, you'll be asked to leave. Why? Because no one wants you to throw up on their shoes. It's not fun for anyone, and no one wants to be talking to the drunk that's hanging over the. I'm not your bartender. Sure. I'll pour this stuff, but I'm not going to give you Coke. There's no mixing. I'll give you 2 drops of water because it's a tasting. It's not about the whiskey. Just like the First Robotics, if you know First Robotics. So First Robotics, what Dean Kamen will say, it's not about the robots. It's like I mean, to some people it is about the robots, right? But it really is about organizing a kind of an enterprise around this thing to make the robot. That's the final thing. So in the whiskey tasting, it's about conversation. So So that's one thing that I've brought to DEF CON, but there's a lot of tomfoolery at DEF CON. There's a lot of overindulgence. There are people who can't take their liquor. DEF CON will always be like that. The thing about
But that's like the one kind of classy party. And everyone sort of cleans up to go to
something,
your bourbon
yeah.
tasting.
Well, because I'm going to yell at them otherwise.
Yeah.
And
We're like straightening our hair on the stairs on the way in.
Well, I will yell. I will. I mean, I don't really mean it sometimes, or sometimes I do.
Oh no, it's all in good fun for sure.
Well, people like to watch, like, what's he going to do now? Because some
Yeah.
guy will come in and grab the bottle. And it's like, don't touch the bottle. It's like, what? Oh,
It's really funny to see people like warn each other, like don't shoot it. Like, you gotta sip it.
yeah. I will call you on it. I did it here too. I gave it some. I said, "This is a tasting," and she goes, "This." It's like she's cut off. She's getting more. Why? Because sometimes I have bottles that are like $100 bottles. I've had bottles that are $800 bottles, and if you take the bottle and pour an 8-ounce, like a big cup, I'm gonna kick you out. First, I'll take the bottle out of your hands. One party, anyway, I won't talk about this guy because he's embarrassed. But he took a bottle of. He'll never live this down. 26-year-old Scotch, put it to his lips, and I jumped out of my seat. And I'm like, what the fuck? What are you? Because no one wants to drink it. Like, who is this guy? He's like, drink 26-year-old Scotch. Like, anyway, he said, I've talked to him since. It's fine. It's fine. He didn't, but people, like, you have to teach them a different way. Like, it can be different. And I think, so that with the hacker community in the U.S., what I observe is, for one thing, you have a lot of strong university connections in Europe, like Congress, which we don't have so much. We have a little bit more of now. But a lot of the U.S. stuff is very focused on CTF stuff. It's still a lot of attack stuff. Yep. Whereas a lot of the European hacker stuff is a lot of research. Actually, people who are professors. You've got scientists here. I prefer that kind of broader reach. I don't, there's definitely this kind of cool, like, it's cool to be a hacker culture thing. We have, in the U.S., we elevate people as heroes, which I think is unfortunately not a good thing. Like it's like, oh my God, he's my hero, like this, whatever. Like, and we also like to take them down, and that happens too in the U.S. hacker culture. And if someone rises too high, and we've seen people over the years who get taken down big time, and that's not good for anyone. It becomes a very toxic environment. I find the European hacker culture generally much more supportive and focused on teaching, and people more open. And you don't see people walking around here as like the star. There are stars here. There's Moxie Marlinspike sitting over there, and he's the guy behind OTR and Signal, right? He's just hanging out over there. There's Bunny Huang. Bunny's like one of the best hardware hackers in the world. Whatever. I'm not gonna, there are stars like, some of the top cryptographers and stuff, but you don't have any feeling like they're not approachable. And with DEF CON, I think sometimes it's like, I'm too cool, and that's maybe just a very American attitude. But I don't know. And I think with I go to a lot of smaller cons, and I think they're a bit different. But they can be very commercial. We often always have a vendor area, and we're often in the vendor area. And I resist. I think I could probably bring certain things to Congress, and people might buy them. But I've always liked the kind of non-commercial aspect of Congress, which is Congress is not supposed to make money. I know that from the organizers, and if the budget is structured in such a way that Congress should not make money. The cost is reasonable. It's supportive, and one thing that's amazing here is like there are like laptops and phones everywhere, and people they leave it even overnight. It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing that with 16,000 people or however many are here. I mean, I'm sure there's some level of theft, but like people are trusting. That's the kind of culture that I'd like to help to bring to the U.S. and the entire world can benefit from this sort of trust. Think of what, like, the world is turned upside down, right? And we have people from around the world. So like hacker culture can teach the whole world, like, how to actually behave like adults, share information, and respect each other. And what's the model? Be excellent to each other. Like, think about that. Like, imagine if, like, in the U.S., Trump supporters and non-Trump supporters could actually respect each other and have conversations about the crazy man with the orange hair. He was, New York City real estate developer turned president, idiot. But, I have a definite opinion on him. But but there's stuff that we can all share and teach. And I think it's really fun to give back. Like, to me, the most rewarding thing that I've done is not to make more money, but to be able to take the money and see it be used and see how much difference you can make in someone's life. Or to have kids who read Python for Kids say, "Thank you, Mr. Pollock." Literally, like this happened. Like 10 girls came up with braces gleaming. It's like, "Thank you, Mr. Pollock," because they're thanking me for Python for Kids. It's like I'm the author, right? But because they learned Python, and it was genuine. They're like, another story I'll never forget. Well, I mean, another thing I'll never forget is same conference, we had books on Scratch. Yep. And we had Lego books, and this kid came in, a young Russian kid, and I said, "You want a Lego book?" He said, "No, I want to learn to program." He took the Super Scratch Programming Adventure book. He sat down in the middle of the booth. He's probably like 7 years old, and he's reading the book. He wanted to program. He doesn't want Lego. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Lego, but like he wanted to learn to code, and he sat there while people walked around him because he's very focused on what he wants to learn. And all of us have that to a certain extent in each of us. The stuff like we desire to learn. We want to understand how things work. And as we grow, what happens is it kind of gets taken out of us because we feel like we can't do it. Maybe we're not good at math because the teacher said something one time and you feel like you're stupid and you can never be a programmer or this, that. And when you're young, in your formative years, it's very hard to overcome that. So one thing I try to do always is make sure that things are clear. So if you read serious cryptography, you can follow all of that because I work through all the math, not because I'm a mathematician. I work through it as a reader. Can I follow it? So instead of you having to figure it out, I figured it out. Not that I figured out the cryptography, but I figured out the discourse, the story. What's the story here? How does it work? How do the rounds work? Like how do you, like if you look at a math equation, the first thing is don't be afraid to look at it. The symbols are just symbols. They just mean something, but mathematicians like a little bit of obfuscation, or sometimes a lot. So don't be afraid to look at the symbols and understand how they relate to each other. And then you can follow how the cryptography works. Some of it is like super hard, like elliptic curve cryptography is kind of hard. And then there's a chapter on post-quantum crypto, which is its own thing. It's like you have to understand how a quantum computing machine works, but I worked on that too. But it's really rewarding to me and always has been when I learn something. It's like, oh, I finally understand that. Now I know what that is. It's like it's like if you're intellectually inclined, it's like that to me is where the joy comes from. I remember when I used to read my biology textbooks, my breathing would actually slow because I was reading a book on developmental biology and I was like engaged with, and I remember this from 30 years ago. I remember the pages and it's like, you're just like, this is great. I just like love it. It's just like eating it up. And that's a feeling that I want everyone to experience. Yeah. And I want people to feel like, oh, I finally understand how this works now. We published a book called Secret Life of Programs by Jonathan Steinhardt.
Oh, okay. Sandstorm interlude.
Okay. Well.
And the sandstorm is gone.
All right.
So Steinhardt was a Tektronix employee. He's a super smart guy, and this is a book that's basically a course in electrical engineering that we sell for $45, and it's better than probably any electrical engineering textbook, and it will teach you really how the machine works. And that's really great. And it's like, well, this is totally cool. Because computing is interesting, but it's built by people. We can understand it. We can also understand biological systems to a certain extent too. But it's great when you really understand it. It's like even when you understand cooking, it's like the Maillard reaction, like when something caramelizes.
There are more reactions than one reaction.
Yeah, right. So it's like, it's cool. That's the science of cooking. Like that's how bread bakes.
So have you visited food hacking base?
Yeah.
Sure, I've learned some things about the Maillard reactions.
Yeah, I've read a bunch of that, and I don't want to get too deep into that because I'll be talking about that for hours. Now I'm like just obsessing over coffee. It's coffee, bourbon, tea. Yeah. I don't know. I used to be big into I'm all Volvos. I mean, other things drive people nuts. I don't care. I mean, like, if you don't like me for that, you're not going to like me at all. Like, I'm not going to stop. But I'll just dig until I know. Like, I can tell you, I mean, I spent hours reading about, like, which thing to use to roast coffee and reading about coffee roasting procedures until I got it, and then I hit it, and it worked fine. I don't know, other things. I've, like, numerous obsessions.
So, when are you going to start a podcast?
Why, you want to just prattle on about nothing? He's still talking. It's been 5 hours. I can't.
All those authors you can interview,
Yeah, I mean, I am really good at
really longing for a podcast from you.
Yeah.
You really should do that.
I mean, my authors would do it. I don't know. Maybe. I am talking about doing, like, my friend and I, we want to do a bourbon tasting because we're really funny together when we taste bourbon. He's usually drunk and I'm not, but that's fine. And then we dig into everything with the bourbon. You look at the bottom of the bottle, you can figure out who made it and who owns what. Bourbon's the perfect drink for hackers because these companies all own each other and they share the stuff around and they repackage it. It's a total, like, giant hack. They repackage it. The price it's the same thing. This thing at $60 is the same as this one at $15, and this came from this company which owns this. And it's all total crazy.
So how was Whiskey Leaks for you?
Well, I had Whiskey Leaks was done the way I do the DEF CON thing, and I think people seem to like the approach, which was we followed generally my rule. Not everyone did, but we pour. It's about talking about introduce the whiskey, and it makes it fun for people. And you get introduced to a bunch of different whiskeys, and you taste them. But what I really liked is that I looked around and I said, look at all the people talking to each other, and that's not what typically is happening, because you have a bunch of introverts in a dark room sitting at their laptop, and everyone's afraid to. I walked up to some people, and they give me this look, and it's like, are you this? No, we're not them. Okay, goodbye. Everyone's afraid to approach because the secret hacker layer. I don't know what's happening, but the thing there is there were a whole bunch of people just chatting about stuff, and that's what I was saying to people is look at what it does. People get together and they're talking. They're talking about the whiskey they tried, and then also because of the way we structured it, nothing ran out too fast. So it wasn't any pressure oh God, I have to get in line. That guy just got a big glass of it. I missed the whole thing. No, it's controlled, but it's not controlled because it's being parceled out so that more people will have it, and everyone can have a chance to talk about it. And I showed people too with, especially with high proof bourbons, if you taste it without a little water, it might be a little harsh. 2 drops of water will change the whole nose. Did you have this experience?
That Four Roses Special Reserve. Right?
Yeah. It's totally opened up and it changed the whole taste. And that's interesting. And there's science behind that. And I think it's probably the water's pushing up the aromatics. I haven't read the paper, but I know it works. I don't.
Yeah, no. I tried that. I tried the before and after.
2 drops.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, it is weird, but it's also fascinating. But there's so much like stuff with food. I used to be in sourdough bread. I raised my own yeast culture. I made beautiful sourdough bread, and basically, once I did it, I'm done. I achieved it. Tastes great. Crust is great. Made it in a cast iron pan. I did it 2 or 3 times. It took too long. It's like a day and a half. But I've done other things with bread where you retard it in the fridge. You create different, because yeast produce different flavors at different different byproducts at different temperatures. So you might retard it for 6 hours, and then you bring it out and you create very complex flavors with sourdough. So that's really interesting stuff, and it's similar to beer brewing. I know Andreas, who does beer brewing. We talked about that because he does the same thing with beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same kind of thing, but all that stuff, look at the nature of this community. Why do we care about that, right? You're not. Food hacking is it's nothing related to your job, but it's just interesting. Oh, that's how it works. That's why it tastes so good, or this is what happens to transform the thing. Here's what happens with meat. Why does or any vegetable when you caramelize a Brussels sprout or something like that. It just changes. What are you actually eating? What's happening there? I don't need all the details necessarily. But some things I want to really understand.
I really found that nearly every hacker, or really every hacker I ever talked to, loves talking about food. Food, I think, is really a topic that brings.
My phone is full of food photos, full of them. Also, if it's not coffee right now, it's food. But we appreciate plating. I think that's a thing. The way people plate with tweezers, it's fascinating to watch. There's a place in Portland called Holdfast, and they cook all the stuff in induction hot plates, everything. And they do this beautiful food with everything is tweezers. It's food art, and I think it's gorgeous. It's amazing. But I also like a big bowl of of stew too, or I had goose for lunch basically, right? But goose is its own challenge because you have this really fatty bird, and you I don't know sorry vegans in the audience if there's any vegans there, but your goal is how do you cook this thing so you can eat it? You've got to get all the fat out without, because otherwise you're just eating this fatty meat. So it's kind of its own, cooking meat is an interesting challenge. But cooking vegan is also fascinating. There's a place that I love in San Francisco called P-L-A-J. It's a Scandinavian restaurant. And they have an amazing vegan menu, which has no tempeh, no seitan, no tofu. It's just interesting, complex stuff. So it's charred watermelon with I'm gonna make it some beans. It's actually a real vegan menu, and there are no vegans in the kitchen. It's just a challenge for them to make this amazing vegan food. It's all vegan, and it's delicious. They had the best thing I had there was called was faux gras, whatever. It's it was made with mushroom. It tasted like foie gras, but it was like done with it had like the texture of kind of a creamy texture, and it was done with mushrooms to give it an earthiness and like fascinating. Or there's like this like rye cracker where they're using whole rye. It's like, and it's really interesting to see what they can do because there's real art to that. But then there's a certain amount of chemistry in some cases, or understanding of what's going to happen when you do this.
Do you plan on attending tour camp next year?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not against it. It's just time for me. I'm trying to run the company and now run the foundation, and I could go to hacker events like literally every week. I could go to B-sides every day of the year.
So, what's your favorite small hacker event?
I love Recon.
Recon.
Yeah, I actually love Recon. Recon. What I love is I usually learn a lot at Recon. It's single track. I like single track. I like deep knowledge. I don't want superficial. I want to actually learn something. Plus, Montreal's got amazing food. And it's not. I mean, I really like the single track. And I don't sell books at Recon. I just get to attend. Like I'll be at ShmooCon in the January, and I'll be vending. And it's like, and the challenge for me when I'm vending is like I can run to talks, but I got 3 talks and I can't balance them, and I have to go back and forth to the table. But Recon, no table. I just bring some stuff, some samples, and I get to talk to like the best reversers in the world, and eat. And it's really great. The bouillon bilk is really good. It's really good. One more. No, you're done.
I don't know. I just got about 5 calls that our assembly is got that torn down. Not they are tearing it down. It's gone. And my backpack is there still.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's end. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard about a conference called Balkan?
Balkan.
I really have to.
That's the Balkan conference.
Yes. It's in Novi Sad, Serbia.
Okay. I saw the listing. We're off. The thing these are off, aren't
It's
they?
a really great conference
Is that right?
here in Europe that I really can.
Okay.
Hey, just so because we didn't do it in the beginning. This is Ben from the Hack the Planet podcast at symbolcrash.com. That's SYMBOL crash.com.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Who are you?
I'm Joseph Irnberger. I make this podcast called
Let's Netz.
Let's Netz.
Yeah. Let's Netz, der Chaos Talk. It's a German title. Technik, Politik. How is our subtitle?
Politik?
Technik, Webpolitik. Yeah, it's our podcast.
Phenomenal. Where can you find it?
Either on radiofabrik.at.
So
That's
it's
German
live streamed,
again,
but
yeah.
we also have the podcast. This is cba.fra.org, I think.
You know what?
CBA.
We'll edit that in
cultural
later.
we need to stay in contact. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we also should exchange the raw data. So
Yeah, absolutely.
perhaps I have.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
thank you.
if you tell me to talk, I'm going to talk. So
Yeah, no, that was awesome. That was a great hacker rant. Well, formless. That's my format. Is formless hacker ranting, and that's going to be amazing.
I'm better when I have a little whiskey in me too.
Oh well.
I don't have any whiskey in me
Challenge
now.
accepted.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
thank you so much. That was amazing.
Yeah. Hopefully that.
Thank you.
Whatever. Just like
Well, I hope we can drive some business to your foundation.
Well, the foundation is really about making it work, and it
Yeah.
needs people. It needs people both to contribute and to request money and like cool stuff. And you'll see.
I love the Humble Bundles. Please continue to do them.
Oh, we are.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll
that's
do
amazing.
We'll do another. We'll do one hacking bundle next year. We'll do because we'll have. I'm doubling the title output, so we'll do about 60 books next year. But the thing, I tried a new title in there. We put a new. Was it Automake? I don't know even what the book is. No one cares about it.
I think I'm just going to slowly walk away.
Yeah. Yeah, but we'll do. I've been toying with whether we want to put new books. I don't know that we'd actually want to do that.
We'll just fade out.